just let me know.
I quickly start streaming and hasn't. Okay, now we're good.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tullahoma. Thank you for joining us this morning in person, on Zoom, or live streaming on YouTube. Now it is time to light the chalice. Carrie, will you light the chalice? May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. Thank you, Carrie. This is now the time for announcements. Other announcements. Yes, Jancy?
Yard sale is coming up May the 20th, and please bring your stuff in. Sunday, May the 14th. Why am I doing this?
May the 20th is Friday. It'll be 8 to 1. Correct?
It's going to be 8 to 12:30 because
Okay.
that's when they can bring the truck to pick up the stuff from Good Samaritan.
Okay.
It's just a one day this time on a Friday because that is actually the more busy yard sale day nowadays. Please price any items you bring in. If you have small items you want to bring in earlier so people can buy them earlier, that's fine, but please don't bring any big items in until the 14th. If you have to do it on another day, arrange a time for the church to be open, let me know. I'll come out and meet you and we can unload. But on the 20th, after church, we'll be putting the tables up, putting stuff out. If you want to stick around and help for that, we certainly appreciate it. And if you want to volunteer to help, let me know also.
Great.
And we have a truck if you can't get something from point A to point B. I don't know if we can get it on the truck, but we have a truck.
Okay. Rick?
Yeah, two things, filling in for Chuck. We're continuing the Thursday night Zoom get together. Maybe we'll do it in person eventually. We're exploring some ideas posited by a think tank, and it's been pretty interesting. We invite you to join us at 7. The second thing is, please come out Monday afternoon to the Farmers Market location in Tullahoma. It's the Earth Day celebration, which our own Robin Dunn is the hub of the wheel, and there'll be music and farmers markets and lots of stuff, and you get to hear me talk about global climate change, maybe, or not.
Any other announcements? Oops.
South Jackson.
Okay. Jim?
A few announcements. Next Sunday, we're going to have rather than a normal service, we won't have a speaker. We're going to have a congregational meeting, and really it's a discussion. This is not a business meeting. This is a discussion, give all the members of the congregation an opportunity to share their perspective, their feelings on how things are going and what they, as far as basically the church Sunday service, and how what they'd like to see for the future. The focus of this really is Zoom. That's been a bit of a contentious issue. So we'll talk about that. The board really wants to hear your perspective, how you feel the Sunday service should be run in the future. And then on May 1st, the following Sunday will be our annual business meeting. And here, that Sunday, I believe Doug is going to give a presentation, and then there'll be no talkback. Then we'll go into the annual business meeting aspect. And there'll be another opportunity for discussion before we start the real business aspect of it. And then we'll approve the budget. We've got some bylaws changes and election of officers. So that's what's happening the next 2 Sundays. As far as COVID goes, if you come to church in person and then you subsequently find out you have COVID, you test positive, please let one of the board members know so that we can get in touch with all the folks who were at church at that time and let them know that potentially they may have been exposed, and so we can give them a heads up and reduce the spread of COVID. And then as far as COVID numbers go, yeah, they're way down. We've been, Margaret's been tracking this. The case number is 1.2 cases per 100,000 in our 7-county area. However, that used to be a really good indication of the spread of COVID, but CDC is not using that anymore. And the reason is all the home testing. Most people are testing at home now. They test positive. They don't have to report that to the Department of Health. So this number, whatever it is just what the health department's aware of. So it's not a true indication of what's going on out there. So anyway, that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay.
Karen?
Any other announcements? If you would like to donate to the work of the church, please make a check payable to the UU Church of Tullahoma. You can send it to our post office box. That's P.O. Box 331, Tullahoma, Tennessee 37388. You can put a check or cash in the shaker box at the back of the sanctuary. Yes, I think that's it. Jim, you covered all the stuff I wanted to make sure that we got, so yay, thank you. Now, Bill has prepared a song, which is number 63 in our hymnal. It's time for you, Bill. If you would stand as you're willing and able, and we'll try to give this one a try, number 63, and Bill will play it through once, right, Bill? Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you, Bill. I realize that Rabbi Rami was slated to speak, but he is unable to be here. But Carrie Hawk, our ever-faithful program director, has got a talk she's prepared called Braver Spaces, and I invite her to the podium.
Thank you, Karen. I didn't prepare it.
Okay. You found it?
I found it on the UUA website. And I really, really liked it. I sent a thing out to the UU website, email list. So I don't know if you got to see it or not, but it was a sign that a woman had painted on a door. And I'll read that to you in a moment. I first wanted to tell you who prepared it. Is the Reverend Megan Lloyd Joyner. She's a healthcare chaplain and mother of two living in Atlanta, Georgia. She serves as the community minister at the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Atlanta and is the former minister of the Unitarian Society in New Haven. A preacher and a poet, her sermons can be viewed on UUCA's YouTube channel, and her poems can be found in print and online in Shelter in This Place, Meditations for 2020 by Skinner House Books, Please See Me, and Dawn of the Day, a poetry anthology by Wingless Dreamer. Sounds wonderful. I will read the poem that was on the door that the woman painted.
You try to bring it up.
If you can, yeah, that would be terrific, because I'm sure there's some people that haven't seen it.
Nope, that's awfully small.
It was, but under the picture.
Hit this little box up here to enlarge the
Try
screen.
that. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and then
Okay, well you can see
try
what it
to
looks like.
Share screen with that as well, maybe.
I'm going to go ahead and read it. There is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars and have caused wounds. This space seeks to turn down the volume of the world outside and amplify voices that have to fight to be heard elsewhere. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our space together, and we will work on it side by side. I just felt like that was such a beautiful poem. And now the sermon that Megan wrote. So this is not me.
I'm gonna stop sharing the screen, hang on.
It's okay.
I-
This is not me. This is Megan in Atlanta. So, because it's pretty personal what she wrote, so I don't want you to think this is my story. Well, I suppose I've been living under a rock because I recently learned that what y'all may have known for months. Earlier this fall, the worship associate from our North Georgia congregation, where I was to offer the sermon the following Sunday, informed me that the reading I had chosen, the poem known as An Invitation to Braver Space, had in fact been plagiarized. The poet whom I originally credited, and may have credited for years, had admitted to plagiarizing the poem from the work of artist and activist Beth Strano. The poet Mickey Scott B. Jones had seen online an image of a door painted with powerful words. Inspired by the poem on the door, she tried to discover who had written it and painted it on the entrance to an artist cooperative space in Phoenix, Arizona. I don't think she worked too hard to find out, though. Instead, Scott B. Jones added a few lines, inserted the brave space, called the place An Invitation to Brave Space, and presented the work to the world as hers. She has been touring and publishing and reading the poem as hers for the past 5 years. This is a sermon that was given in January, so it's very recent. I was floored when I learned this and was deeply grateful to the worship associate who was clearly on her research game. Needless to say, I hurried back to rewrite portions of the sermon I had planned to talk about. I had planned to talk about imperfection and mistakes and wounds and scars and resilience. And darned if the very story of the reading that inspired me to engage these topics wasn't an example of all of those things. Because we do, as Vestrano says in the original poem, exist in the real world, and we do all have the potential to cause harm to others, intentionally and unintentionally, and we do all have the potential to be harmed intentionally and unintentionally. The poet who meant well, I think, who inspired many, who invited us into brave space, who helped us to accept our limitations and move forward together, who told us, as she had penned a rallying cry for tall standing, community building, big-hearted lovers of life and each other, actually hadn't penned it at all. In fact, she had caused significant harm to another poet and to the communities of which they were both a part. Betrayed, ungrounded, angry, and hurt are some of the words that folks use to describe their feelings once this came to light. I think we can imagine those feelings relatively easy. Perhaps we have felt them when someone caused us harm, whether they meant to or not. Betrayed, ungrounded, angry, hurt. Can you also imagine the dread that Scott B. Jones must have felt as she toured and interviewed and recited the poem? Fear that someone would find out, that someone would discover that these bold words were not hers, were never hers, were in fact stolen. That's the part that gets me the most. The cowardice of plagiarism, born of a fear that one might never be able to write something as good or powerful as someone else, that one might not be able to be as inspiring. And before you know it, someone has wrapped themselves in lies, made in someone else's image. And the fear is, what am I without this? Maybe I'm not enough. Maybe I'm nothing. This is not to excuse what Mickey Scott B. Jones did. It is my attempt to try to understand her choices, to offer her some grace while we seek to repair the harm. It is my attempt to understand the power of fear as a motivator and the healing power of courage and resilience as an antidote to fear. I've thought a lot about fear over the past 20 months. Fear has motivated me to feel and do so many things throughout this pandemic. I have felt anger, betrayed, discounted, hurt. I have spoken sternly to strangers, demanded they put on a mask, excoriated them for not wearing one around my baby, who cannot be vaccinated yet and until recently could not wear a mask herself. I have avoided places and people. I've used my body as a human shield and ushered my children away from others. I have canceled plans, turned around immediately after walking through a store doorway, masked when no one else did, and stayed in isolation last year over Christmas, my baby's first, out of fear of getting my husband and children sick when I lost my taste and smelled and wandered into the wilderness of mild COVID symptoms for 10 days. We all have stories of what we've done out of fear, not just over the past 2 years, but in our lives before the pandemic as well. Perhaps we gave up something we wanted to do or be. Perhaps we let someone we loved go for fear our love was unreciprocated. Perhaps we never made the phone call to a friend that would have repaired a relationship. Perhaps we never tried something or never tried it again. Perhaps we didn't offer useful feedback for fear of hurting someone's feelings. Or maybe we didn't protect someone for fear of offending another. Perhaps we were afraid of saying the wrong thing, or doing the wrong thing, or being the wrong way. Or perhaps we were afraid sometimes that we wouldn't be perfect or good enough. Perhaps we were afraid we would get hurt. Perhaps we did get hurt. The truth is, we exist in the real world, and we all carry scars, and we all have the capacity to wound. We cannot protect everyone from the world, and we cannot be completely protected from it ourselves. So my question is, how do we accept this fact? And how do we, at the same time, create together braver spaces spaces that allow us to build resilience, to respect, honor, and support the resilience of others, and commit to remain accountable to and in loving relationship with others. My eldest daughter, Arden, is my greatest inspiration to resilience. I have her permission to share this story. Not too long ago, Arden, who is 8, endured 29 allergy testing shots up and down her arms as she was tested for a reaction to an insect venom after a pretty scary reaction to a bee sting. Round after round, shot after shot, she wiped her tears and steeled herself for the next prick. I was in awe. The next day we stood in line at the pediatrician for her COVID vaccine, and she told them, "Yesterday I got 29 shots. This one won't be bad at all." Tears rolled down my face this time as she rolled up her sleeve and bared her bruised arm so that we might end this pandemic. Because of the relationship we have built throughout her life, Arden knew, through both ordeals, that I would not put her unnecessarily at risk. Through the profound discomfort of the allergy shots, we would learn information we needed in order to empower her to move more safely and confidently through the world. Knowing this helped her to brave the temporary fear and pain of the shots. Similarly, with her COVID vaccine behind her, we together are able to let go of some of the fear that has ruled our lives for nearly 2 years. We are all more than ready to focus our attention elsewhere. We could not be more grateful for science and scientists and the healthcare professionals that are getting shots in arms every day. Reflecting on her resilience, the line from Khalil Gibran's epic poem, "The Prophet," has been echoing in my mind. "You may strive to be like your children, but seek not to make them like you. I strive to be half as brave and as resilient as my child, and I pray that we may find ways as individuals, institutions, communities, and as a society to help us all build up our bravery and resilience, because God knows we need it. I also pray that we continue to find ways to amplify those voices that struggle to be heard and understand that safety and harm look different depending on the amount of power and privilege we hold, and that we may build strong, empowered relationships that enable all of us to feel safe enough to ask difficult questions and have challenging conversations and share ideas that stretch us. I pray that we will simultaneously hold accountable those who cause harm, whether intentionally or out of ignorance, because of a misstep or even an egregious mistake. May we call those who have caused harm back in, not out, into relationship and into community. This is how we will move forward into this new world of ours, working towards and fighting for a world filled with more justice, more equity, more peace for all beings. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you, Carrie. Since I've been coming to this church in 2000, we've had a tradition of, in the spring, doing what we call a flower communion. And Carrie had asked me if this might not be a good time for us to do that again. I'm going to be reading sort of a history of where it came from. And the procedure for the flower communion we've adapted to be everybody can bring a flower from home, from their garden, from the roadside, or wherever, and we place it in vases up at the front of the room. In the past, we've had the children then come and distribute the flowers to people. But since right now we don't have children here, I'm going to ask while I read this history of the flower communion, if you would all just mosey on up to the front and take a flower that you did not bring. And then sit down. And you'll see why in a minute as I read this. The flower communion service was created by Norbert Kapek. He founded the Unitarian Church in Czechoslovakia. He introduced this special service to that church on June 4th, 1923. And for some time he felt the need for some symbolic ritual that would bind people more closely together. The format would be one that would not alienate anyone who'd forsaken other religious traditions. The traditional Christian communion service with bread and wine was unacceptable to the members of his congregation because of their strong reaction against the Catholic faith. So he turned to native beauty of the countryside for elements of a communion which would be genuine to them. And this simple service was the result. It was such a success, it was held yearly, just before the summer recess of that church. The flower communion was brought to the United States in 1940 and introduced to the members of our Cambridge, Massachusetts church by Čapek's wife, Maja Čapek. The Czech-born Maja had met Norbert Kapek in New York City when he was studying for his PhD, and it was at her urging that Norbert left the Baptist ministry and turned to Unitarianism. The Kapeks returned to Czechoslovakia in 1921 and established the dynamic liberal church in Prague. Maja Kapek was ordained in 1926, and it was during her tour of the United States that Maja introduced the flower communion, which had been developed in the Prague church. Maja was unable to return to Prague due to the outbreak of World War II, and it was not until the war was over that Norbert Kapek's death in a Nazi concentration camp was revealed. From this beginning, the service spread to many of our Unitarian Universalist congregations and has been adapted along the way. People were asked to bring a flower of choice either from their own garden or from the field or roadside, and they were put in vases. This signified it was by their own free will they joined with the others. And the vase contained all the flowers was a symbol of the United Church Fellowship. After the service, as people left the church with a flower different from the one they had brought. The significance of the flower communion is that no two flowers are alike, so no two people are alike. Yet each has a contribution to make. Together, with the different flowers, they form a beautiful bouquet. Our common bouquet would not be the same without the unique addition of each individual flower, and thus it is with our church community. It would not be the same without each and every one of us. And thus, this service is a statement of our community. By exchanging flowers, we show our willingness to walk together in our search for truth, disregarding all that might divide us. Each person takes home a flower brought by someone else, thus symbolizing our shared celebration and community. This communion of sharing is essential to a free people of a free religion. And whenever Dr. Čapek conducted this ceremony in Prague, he would say this proverb as he, quote, consecrated the flowers. Infinite Spirit of life, we ask thy blessing on these, thy messengers of fellowship and love. May they remind us, amid diversities of knowledge and of gifts, to be one in desire and affection, and devotion to thy holy will. May they also remind us of the value of comradeship, of doing and sharing alike. May we cherish friendship as one of thy most precious gifts. May we not let awareness of another's talents discourage us or sully our relationship, but may we realize that whatever we can do, great or small, the efforts of all of us are needed to do thy work in this world. Thank you all for participating in our flower communion. And now, if we'll do our closing hymn, and then we'll take a little break for some refreshments, and then around 11 o'clock we'll come back in here and circle out and discuss Carrie's talk. In our hymn book, it's 414. If you all would rise as you're willing and able, and we'll sing our closing hymn.
As we leave this friendly place, love give light to every face. May the kindness which we learn light our hearts till we return.
Thank you. And so it is.